Welcome, my name's Hughes, and in this episode of In Case You Missed It, we're going to take a look back at some of the most noteworthy moments of last week. Let's get into it. Now, it all started in a typically British fashion. On Monday evening, we had a football match for the history books. Non-League Sutton, a team of average Joes with average jobs, take on Premier League giants Arsenal, a team that specialise in avoiding silverware so hard, people are starting to think they might actually be werewolves. Surprisingly, the best moment came when the cameras captured Wayne Shaw, Sutton's reserve goalie, picking down a pie on the sidelines in the 83rd minute. The whole country lost their shit. The next day, Nick Grimshaw was talking about him on The Breakfast Show, and Piers Morgan was interviewing him for ITV Good Morning, which looked a bit like this.
Pies? What would it take to prize you and your pies out of Sutton to Arsenal?
I think the ladies mighty Arsenal.
By the end of the day, Wayne Shaw's reputation, alongside the hopes and dreams of many other people in Britain, had been crushed. Information revealed that the pie incident was actually part of a bet-fixing scandal involving a well-respected British betting company. Just like that, the dream was over, faster than Wayne himself could gobble down a pie. What have we learned from all this? That our lives in Britain might actually not be that exciting. Only in Britain could a pie-gobbling goalie end up national news. Once more this week, we saw our headlines plastered with the news that there was a forecast for even further NHS cuts. Now, as fun as it is getting caught up in the buttery banter-ridden world of pie memes, being grounded in the reality of this country at the moment is important. No matter which side you're on, and which side you sit on the political table, a thriving NHS and a Tory government aren't really synonymous ideas. I wanted to get an inside perspective on the NHS, and conveniently, I have a brother who's training to be a doctor. I caught up with Jake and asked him to relay to me some of the key concerns he has for the NHS at the moment. First of all, one of the most concerning issues is that there's an appalling fining of the NHS hospitals that needs to stop. Certain trusts have funding gaps in the millions, which means they can't provide all the necessary services. This then leads them to miss targets, which they get fined for. It increases the funding gap and the process repeats, so obviously that seems like a flawed idea. Secondly, he said the government is proposing that NHS services are to be decentralised, meaning that they be moved out into the community, and they want to cut funding to hospitals themselves. Now, this could be an idea, but due to savage cuts to the community services and an increasing strain because of a patient base that is increasingly old and riddled with lifestyle disease, the community services themselves are collapsing, which is pushing patients back into the hospitals, which are having their funding slashed. Again, it just seems like a no-brainer and kind of a bad idea. Mental health services are now literally non-existent. The services that were available have received some of the deepest cuts and have left some facilities unable to offer counselling for up to 20 weeks. Mental health services themselves are disappearing so quickly that they're all being lumped onto GPs who have to try and resolve, in many cases, a life of pain and suffering in a 7-minute conversation. Further cuts to a healthcare system that has already been subjected to 7 years of unforgiving austerity will simply not be able to tolerate further underfunding. It is on the brink of collapse, and further cuts will be enough to sink it completely. Patients are already dying because of the lack of resources. People are suffering. Fortunately, in the UK, when these sort of tricky issues need to be discussed, there's something that we can turn to as a facility that helps us engage with modern issues. Hi there. How do you fancy an experience that blows your mind for all the wrong reasons? Worried your blood pressure might actually be too healthy? Then it's time for you to start buttering your crumpets with the British PMQS, a rage-inducing spectacle that sees politicians behave like schoolyard children, hurling insults at each other like animals with shit in a zoo. Starring Tareen Mayhem and Gerald Corboyle. The British Prime Minister's Questions, where inducing suicidal tendencies isn't just a promise, it's a guarantee. Oh yes, the PMQs. This week's was a real corker, with the main issue being the NHS cuts. Despite there being some weighty subjects thrown around, and Jeremy Corbyn attempting to make some pretty decent points, the Labour Party's most notable and newsworthy contribution was when Mad Dog Tom Watson pulled off a sweet dab in the midst of a debate about National Health Service underfunding that's resulting in people dying. What really stuck out for me, though, was Theresa May's response to all of this. Check it out.
But he should he should consider correcting the record, because 54% of hospital trusts are considered good or outstanding.
I love that. I wonder what would happen if I tried that at work. Okay, Zach, your review's up, and there's actually some causes for concern. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but 50 to 54% of my work's good or excellent. No, Zach, that's the point. That's the issue. After all of that, I feel like we're left wondering, with the likes of Trump and May going to town on both Britain and the US, is there anybody that's willing to stand up for us? Of all the places I imagine some much needed criticism of two notable world leaders at the moment, I really didn't expect much of it to come from Katy Perry. Admittedly, in her new single, there's a fairly subtle political undertone that moves toward making some kind of point, but I don't feel it actually gets there. What does Katy do to quash my doubts? She uses two giant skeleton puppets as symbols for both Theresa May and Donald Trump. It might not be where I expected it coming from, but I feel like it's a little victory to see Katy Perry sticking it to the man, even if it is highly unlikely that it will amount to anything, and everyone will have forgotten about it by next week. Claudio Ranieri was sacked as Leicester City manager just a few days ago, breaking the hearts of the footballing community worldwide. It's a grim reflection and a sign of the times when Leicester City have an entitlement to sack a manager that won them the Premier League title last season, a feat that many thought were impossible. So, Claudio, I recite this poem for you, as I feel it reflects how you felt less than a year ago. Had I the heavens embroidered cloths, enwrought with golden and silver light, the blue and the dim and the dark cloths of night and light and the half-light, I would spread the cloths under your feet, but I, being poor, have only my dreams. I have spread my dreams under your feet. Tread softly, because you tread on my dreams. What you just did, Leicester, is you stamped all over them, you pulled your pants down, took a massive shit on them, spit on it, set it on fire, and stuck your middle fingers up to a man that gave you more than you could ever even dream of having. Fuck you guys. Whilst you're on your way to subscribing to my channel, you may consider commenting or liking this video. When doing so, have this question in mind and let me know what you think. It's a really good would you rather that my friend Joe Reed let me know about last night. Would you rather never see your parents again, or always be able to see them in the corner of your eye? Think about that. Really think about it. I've been me, you've been you. That was In Case You Missed It with Zach Hughes.